All right, artists, welcome to our latest project. We're calling it Buildings Around. We're going to need a compass. If you have one of these fancy types of compass, you can use those. Or you can use something round, preferably something clear. A glass works good. You need some type of straight edge, whether it's a regular ruler or something more fancy, and a pencil. That's all we're going to need to start. And the first thing you're going to do is find the middle of your paper. So if you have an 8.5 by 11 sketchbook, it's going to be 4.25 by 5.5. And I know you can't see the marks I'm making, but I'm finding the middle and making a little cross mark. You can see the dot there. And I'm going to take my, you can use a cup, and what you got to do is center the cup in the middle. That's why you need glasses, so that you can see the middle point. A normal drinking glass is about the right size. You really don't want anything that's more than about 3 inches. So I'm going to set my compass here to 1.5 inches, which 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches is 3 inches. And you just spin that joker around and make yourself a perfect circle. And like I said, I know a lot of you probably don't have compasses at home, so you can use a clear glass. Most drinking glasses are probably right around 3 inches around, but it's important that it's clear so that you can center it well. So you've got this circle, you've got your middle point, and what you're going to do is take your straight edge, whether that's a ruler or something else, and you're going to start making these radial marks. And you don't want to do this heavy. You want to do this nice and light, because at some point you probably are going to want to erase them. And what I'm doing is I'm lining it up with that center point. And I'm not drawing it all the way through the center. You can see I'm drawing it from the edge of my circle outwards. And so just go all the way around, make yourself several of these marks. They're going to come in really handy as guidelines as we begin to draw buildings outwards from our center point. And you need these radial lines to help you get your edges of your building, your vertical edges of your buildings, your windows, your doors, all those things that go upwards. These are going to be super helpful. But like I said, make them light enough that you'll be able to easily erase them. Just, the weight of your pencil, maybe a little bit more than that, just enough for you to see them. I'm making mine probably a little darker so that you guys can see them, but even mine you can't see them real well, but you get the idea. So you're just going to keep making these until you go all the way around your circle. Notice that I'm going all the way out to the edges of my pages, because at this point I don't know how big I'm going to make my buildings, my city, which is what this is going to end up being, is a city around this circle. We're going to do 3 layers of buildings, and for this week you're just going to start out with the first layer, and we'll get into more details of that in just a second. Alright guys, so at this point in the process we need to start making some artistic decisions about what we're going to include in our building process, and the buildings we're going to use, what they're going to look like, what are going to be the things closest to us. So before we actually look at the buildings, what I wanted to do is take a second and look at the things in these pictures that are closest to us. So first of all, we've got this tree in the front, and then we also have a smaller tree. We've got some bikes here. Now bikes would be hard because they're really small, so I'm not sure we want to do that. If you look at this next picture, we've got a street sign here. We've got some more trees. These trees don't have any leaves, so it's probably winter time still. So you probably want to think about, what season is it? Is it fall? Is it winter? Is it spring or summer? All of those things create different looks. If you do spring, your trees might have flowers on them, where if you do fall, they're going to be orange, red, yellow, maybe still some green. So those are things to think about. What else can we see here? Don't see a whole lot. There's some, you can barely see the trees on this one. There's definitely winter in that picture too. Now if you look at this one, this street is lined with cars. So you may want to put cars in the very front of your buildings, but they're going to have to be small. We didn't draw a very big circle. If you're one of those people that loves to draw tiny little details, you might want to try to put a few cars. It's fine. I like these street posts, which I think I'm going to end up using in my example for you guys. That's a nice little feature. They're not real hard to draw, and I think it'll look pretty good. I think oh, we got one more. I like this lamppost in this one too that's got the two flags on it. Again, this is trees. Now this is a work of art, and I know that a lot of our projects, I tell you guys, I want you to work from real pictures, and in this case I'm going to throw that out the window. If you want to look up artwork to work from, I just want you to use building references. So let's go back to the beginning of our buildings here and think about our buildings. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some features to our street, which our street goes around. Let me actually stop this slideshow here and get rid of this. Okay, so back to our artwork. So we've got this round circle here, and what we want to do is add some features to it. And now what makes this peculiar is it's around a circle. So the reason we drew all these, kind of starburst thing going out from the center of our circle was to give us a vertical reference point for our buildings, for whatever we may be putting on here. Now mine aren't evenly spaced, and yours don't have to be either, but you may want to think about, while you're adding things, do you want anything to be evenly spaced? And the best way to do that is going to be using, just carefully spacing those out when you start, or adding some more marks to help them be more even. So like I said, I like those lamp posts, and I'm going to show you how small I'm going to draw these. I don't want them to be big. And yes, this is upside down. I think that's the shape they are. Let's look at them again. Yeah, that's pretty much what they look like. Tops are a little fancier than that. Oh, that's what it is. Okay, and I'm not going to color these because we're going to go back later and add color to some stuff. But anyway, rather than talk you through this, I'm going to speed up the camera, zoom it in a little bit, and let you guys see just a few close-up features that I want to use. Alright guys, so I've got some simple things in the front. I just chose to do trees and lampposts. Like I said, if you want to do cars, if you want to add some street signs, newspaper boxes, anything you can think of. It may take some research for you to go and look up city streets. Just Google city streets. Google things on the sidewalk in a city. Anything like that. Just use common sense to think about how you're going to search for these things, and you'll go to the images tab on Google, and you're going to find tons of stuff. You could go on Pinterest and look up city streets. If you've never used Pinterest, it's a picture-driven website, and you can find a whole lot of good pictures about what you're looking for references with that. So our next step here is going to be to think about the kind of buildings that we want to use. And so we're going to go back and look at these buildings. So these are our buildings that are close up. I intentionally looked up small buildings, small city buildings, because what we're going to do with this is we're going to put smaller buildings in the front, we're going to put a second row of larger buildings, and then a third row of tall buildings. And so whatever you decide to do, that's going to be the format, because we want to have this illusion of depth when we're done, that the things we just put in there are in the front, the smaller buildings are behind those things, the medium-sized buildings are behind those buildings, the larger buildings are in the very back. And then we'll do something to finish things out around our buildings around this circle. We'll also figure out what we want to put in the middle of this circle, which I'm going to completely leave up to you guys and let you be creative with. So spoiler alert there. But let's check out these buildings. We may want to oversimplify our buildings when we draw them. So let me show you what I mean before we go any further. So we may want to draw buildings that look like this, that just we take the lines that we have here and then we just, now remember this is a round, so we want the tops of our buildings to have a little bit of roundness to them. It's not absolutely essential. If you don't end up doing it, it's not going to ruin your artwork, but it does give this continued roundness. You can even get, if you want to get real technical and you've got a compass or you've got some bigger circles, you could draw several reference circles around, which I did this the first time, where you're just drawing really lightly with your compass, and you may not even see this on the video. You can see some of it, I think. And you're giving yourself like a reference point. Do another one. I like this because I'm a detail-oriented kind of guy, so I like these kind of details. Even doing this just looks kind of cool, right? Let's do one more in case I want to have buildings that run all the way off the edges of my page. Do one more really big one there. Okay, so now I've got some references around. Now you don't have to have a compass to do this. You just have to find things that are bigger circles. The trick is, if you don't have a compass, you've got to keep it in the center. So that's why when we use a clear cup, we can see the center of it, especially with this one because it's got this recycle symbol on it, and so we know the center is right there. So you almost have to find like a glass, something you can see through to do this. If you have a lid, you could actually find the center of the lid and poke a hole in it so that you can see the mark on your paper. However you need to do that, take the time to do it so that all your circles stay centered. If you don't have that, another trick you can use is if you have a ruler that has a hole in it right here. A lot of rulers will have holes in them, like right at the edge for hanging them or whatever. You can stick something in that hole and then use one of the inch marks and turn that around and just make sure your pencil stays on whatever inch mark you use. And that actually gives you, a measured circle all the way around. You just have to be really careful that your ruler doesn't slide around. You want that circle to be perfect. So that's another good way to do that without a compass. So back to what we're talking about. So I started with small buildings, and that's how I want you to start, is with using these small buildings. So let's look at this again. So we've got some, we don't want to oversimplify our buildings. We don't want to just draw boring buildings that all they are is this rectangle shape and have some boring old windows. Oh my goodness. Pause for this fire drill. Alright guys, I'm back. The school did not burn down. It was just a fire drill. So we're good. So what I was saying, let's not make boring buildings. You can see, if you look at pictures, look at all the different parts of this building that are beyond just the simple rectangle. You've got this cool top peak here that's very unique on the brown building, not the red building. I don't know if you guys can see my cursor or not. You've got these cool little things above the windows, these tiny windows at the top. You've got this very detailed top band on the very top of the building. You've got big windows down at the bottom. They're different colors. So all these things are interesting. And then look at the red building beside here. You've got these arched windows with circular windows in between. So all of these things are very interesting, as opposed to just a boring old building that's got, 4 windows in it and a door. Let's look at actual buildings and try to mimic some of the features. Again, look at the top of this building, how unique it is. These are the kind of details that you want to add. You can fake it with the windows a little bit once you get a feel for, how windows have, little decorations above them and below them. The window itself is usually square or rectangular, but it's the things around the windows that add interest. Look at this, also how the texture of the actual building is a little different in places. At the top you have these little squares. You have this band of stone that comes down the side that's kind of rough looking. And then the whole bottom of the building looks different. So look at those things. I've got all these pictures uploaded to your assignment, so you've got all these references. And if you want to look up more, then look up more. I love this gray building on the right that has all this glass in it. And look at the top windows, the middle windows, and the bottom windows are all different. They're all shaped a little bit differently. So pay attention to those details when you're adding the buildings. This does not take as long as what you think to draw these buildings, especially when you have a reference. So, and this week all I want you to do is get the first, your very front things, which are what I drew, the lampposts and the trees, whatever else you decide to add. And then also I want you to do this first layer of buildings that go around your circle here. Another feature you can see on some of these are these balconies and awnings that you see sticking out, something else you can add. Let me throw another thought at you. This is a movie theater as well, so you could put something like that in there. There's all kinds of interesting things. What about if you didn't want to do a typical American city? You could use, these are Asian buildings, and these are just vector art of different types of Asian buildings. There's lots and lots. If you Google Asian buildings, you're going to find lots of different, not just artwork, but real pictures. I've got a real picture here. I think this is actually a monastery, if I'm not mistaken. But you can see, even if you look at it kind of from the left side going back, you can see these small buildings down at the bottom, and as it goes up they get larger and larger. And so you can kind of fudge some of these things. If you get a feel for how the buildings look, you'll be able to start drawing them on your own without the references. References are always good though for the details. So you could do Asian buildings. What about bridges? You could add some bridges, especially on your first layer. When we get to the bigger layers, you could add walkways between buildings, which is kind of what you see here. Up high there's a walkway, but then this is also a bridge. There's a couple more I've got here. This is a famous bridge in Vienna. So anything like this. Here's another bridge, and this one's actually got some of the town around it. There's some mountains behind there. All of these things you can use as references. Look at this skinny, very skinny tower that you see in there. There's a couple of them. 2 on the right actually and 1 on the left. Those are the kind of features that you can add. Now, these are all real life buildings that we've looked at so far. What if you wanted to do a castle? This is real life too, but what if you want to do more of a medieval theme for your city? where you use castles and old-fashioned buildings. There are tons of castles in the world that you can use for references. There's also, these are all like gaming models that artists have designed for games. And what a cool reference. It's just a bunch of buildings right there for you. You can see what the fronts of them look like. We're not worried about getting all the three-dimensional depth. We're just looking at the faces of the buildings. So, you can steal from all of these and make a really nice little medieval town around your circle. Or you could do something sci-fi. I think this is a artwork for Coruscant in Star Wars. So all of those things are possible. I want you guys to enjoy this. You could do alien cities. It does not matter to me. What I do want to see you do is I want to see you be very careful and detail-oriented with this work of art. So take your time, look at the details. This first layer is not going to take you a long time. I'm going to speed up the video and you'll be able to see my first layer finished in pencil. We're not going farther than pencil on the first layer. We'll go back when we finish, when we decide as the artists how we want to finish it. Do you want to use colored pencils? Some of you have watercolors at home. You might want to paint this with watercolor. You might want to mix it up and do watercolor and marker and colored pencil. You might want to try putting acrylic in your sketchbook. If you got some heavy paper in your sketchbook, you can get away with that. It's going to crinkle up, but the nice thing about it being in a sketchbook is when it's dry, you can close it and put something heavy on it and it'll just smash it back to flat. So all of those things are decisions you want to make. I want you to make them creatively. So that's all I'm going to say for the start of this. This week, you've got to get that first layer done. It's going to be graded. We're not doing any rough drafts for this. So when we get all finished, your final product is going to be a test grade in itself. So yes, you're going to be graded on the steps to get there, but in the end, the whole thing's going to be graded as one. And for a wonderful change for you guys, I'm sure you'll be happy that I'm not making you do any rough drafts. Other than if you want to do some rough drafts of individual buildings just to get a feel for it, do that on a separate piece of paper and then add it afterwards. So without any more talking, I am going to speed up the video and show you what I'm going to do with mine. I am looking at references just like I ask you guys to. So enjoy the rest of the video, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys do with this project. So there's my first layer. You can see I've left some gaps here and there, some small ones. Don't leave great big gaps. Alleyways is what you're thinking of. You'll end up seeing the taller buildings behind these alleyways. But you don't want to leave giant gaps because then it just creates a type of awkwardness. So just small gaps, leave a few buildings. That didn't take me long at all, so enjoy, have fun with this, be creative, add details to your buildings, and I look forward to seeing what you got.